So welcome, everyone. You are in the right place. This is the all hands meeting of the New York State CDFI Coalition. I'm Colleen Ryan. I'm the Consulting Executive Director, and we're very glad you could join us today. Most of you on this call are CDFI executives, but we are going to have a few special guests. So here's an elevator soundbite of what New York State Community Development Financial Institutions, or CDFIs, do. We provide financial services and education for low-income New Yorkers. We leverage federal and private dollars for economic development. We create market-based solutions that provide capital to chronically underserved communities across the state. And we promote responsible alternatives to predatory loans. Stick a pin in that. That's what we're talking about today. So since 1995, the New York State CDFI Coalition has been the organizer and catalyst for strategic initiatives that help CDFIs in the communities they serve. The coalition provides a collective voice, allowing our members to stay locally focused while delivering impact associated with increased scale. That's one of the reasons we launched these all hands meetings. During the pandemic, the New York State CDFI Coalition Board got into the habit of meeting by Zoom once a week at lunchtime. These Friday noon Zooms gave CDFI executives from across the state the chance to compare notes, express frustration, and collaborate on some of the biggest challenges of their careers. We thought it would be a good idea to extend this opportunity to our members and convene a meeting every other month where we could share business updates, celebrate milestones, and give everyone a chance to ask questions. So before we get started, I'm going to share some save the dates, and then I'll ask everyone to introduce themselves, and then I will introduce our speaker, who I presume will have joined us by then. So do save the date for these upcoming special events. On Friday, April 8th, we're going to be convening a panel about New York State CDFIs and transportation justice. We're going to have some folks from the Equitable Commute Project, and from Spring Bank, who is the financial partner of this effort in New York City. And we're going to be talking broadly about replicability across the state. So that's Friday, April 8th, mark that down. Later in April and into May, we're going to have our spring DEI series, Friday, April 22nd, May 6th, and May 20th. The series is called Making Change, New York State CDFIs and Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. We are very happy to be working with Jennifer Rutledge of Delphi Consulting. Late last year, as you may recall, Jennifer created a survey to establish a baseline for where New York State CDFIs were with DEI work in their own institutions. Have you dipped a toe in the water? Are you fully engaged in rewriting all of your policies? Are you somewhere in between? So more than half of our members responded to the survey, and now that Jennifer has reviewed the results, we will be convening facilitated conversations around this work. So the conversations will take place on April 22nd and May 6th, and our next all hands on May 20th will focus on recap of next steps. These efforts are funded with a $20,000 grant from US Bank, for which we are deeply grateful. And finally, on June 10th, which seems a long way away, but it'll be here before you know it, we will have our annual meeting of members, also on Zoom. So why don't we go ahead and go around the screen and introduce ourselves as we wait for our featured speaker to join us. So I think it's going to be, and there he is. Good. He's here just in time for our introductions. So I'm just, because Zoom is funny and we're all in different positions on the screen, I'm just going to go ahead and call on you from left to right as you appear on my screen. So Chris, why don't we start with you?
Great, Chris Breslin. I'm Chief of Staff to Assemblyman Ken Zabrowski, who represents Rockland County.
Thanks for being with us, Chris.
Thank you.
And Kim Jacobs. Oh, you're gonna have to unmute, Kim. Here, you know what? I'm just gonna unmute everybody. I think I can do that. No.
Okay, sorry. I'm Kim Jacobs, recently retired CEO of Community Capital New York. Now all-around rabble-rouser. I'm particularly interested today to hear an update about this legislation, since I was on the Public Policy Committee when we were working so hard.
You were leading the charge. And Mandy Kelso.
Hi, Mandy Kelso, Community Manager, Development Manager of TD Bank out of Lower Hudson Valley. I also sit on the board with of Community Capital New York, and I've worked with Kim extensively, and the new director, Farshad, who I see is on the line.
Thanks, Mandy. Welcome. Robert P. Oh, I can't hear you, Robert.
Okay, I
There
think
you go. Now you're
yeah.
good.
My name's Bob Padula. I'm with Empower Federal Credit Union. We became a CDFI back in 2016, and you know, we've been applying for grants through the CDFI to help our members, and I'm just really starting to get involved with this to see what else is going on in our state.
Welcome, Pilgrim.
Thanks.
Madeline M.
And good afternoon to all. My name is Madeline Marquez, and I'm the Senior Vice President, Chief External Affairs Officer for Ponce Bank, and happy to be here.
Always good to see you, Madeline. And Warren G.
Yes, hello. My name is Warren Goodrich. I am the business mentor at the Brooklyn Cooperative Federal Credit Union, and it's great to see everyone this afternoon.
Thanks, Warren. And Louis, our special guest.
Folks, I'm Louis Caditz-Peck. I'm Director of Public Policy at Lending Club, which is a fintech company and a bank, and I'll say a little more later. Glad to be here. I'm glad to see some familiar faces.
And Sarah.
Good morning, good afternoon, everybody. Sarah Halpern, CEO of Business Consortium Fund. We serve entrepreneurs of color participating in the supply chains of the largest U.S. corporations. Nice to meet everyone.
And dogs, apparently.
And dogs. She starts barking whenever I go off mute.
She wants to
Happens
start
every
the
time.
conversation. It happens. Maximilian.
Hi, everybody. Maximilian Weiner. I am CEO and founder of Resilient. We are an inclusive insurtech company based in New York City. Recently partnered with DFS New York and Ascendus, formerly Axion East, providing $50,000 of free life insurance to active customers who are paying their loan on time, which is our fundamental model and that we are looking to build on, I would say, in the wider CFI community.
Thanks, Maximilian. Farshad.
Oh, hi, I'm Farshad Moltez. I'm the current President and CEO of Community Capital New York.
Thank you. And Christina.
Hi, I'm Christina Sove, the CEO at Cooperative Federal in Syracuse.
Thank you. And Delia.
Hey, Delia Yar, I work for INHS. We're a CDFI out of Ithaca, New York.
And John F.
That's Southern Chautauqua Federal Credit Union, way out in down Lakewood, New York, the part of the state that is often forgotten, and the only depository CDFI in Chautauqua County.
Thanks, John. Javier, please.
Hey there, Leila. How you doing? Very good.
Javier Z.
Okay. Good morning, everybody. My name is Javier Zapata, and I'm the President and Executive Director for National Enterprise Center up here in upstate New York. Glad to be here.
Thanks so much. And Linda M.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. I'm Linda Mcfarland, Executive Director of the Community Loan Fund, a CDFI in Albany, New York, and serving the surrounding capital region, and also the current chair of the New York State CDFI Coalition Board.
And thank you, Linda. Anya, please.
Hi, everyone. This is Anya Irons. I'm Deputy Executive Director and General Counsel at UHAB. We operate a CDFI loan program exclusively for folks purchasing into limited equity cooperatives in New York State.
Thank you, Anya. And Socorro.
Good afternoon. My name is Nicole Vallejo. I'm with the Business Consortium Fund, and I work with Sarah Hopper.
Okay, that's great. I think that's all of us. If I didn't call on you and you want to jump in, feel free to do so, but I think I've gotten everyone. So thank you all for being here. Before I introduce our featured presenter, do start thinking about what you want to talk about during the Q&A after his presentation: funding and financing, best practices, legislative issues, products or services for CDFIs, special events, job postings. Is everybody having a hard time filling open spots? So just kind of put your thinking caps on while we have our featured presenter. So while you're thinking, I hope that you will join me in welcoming Louis Caditz-Peck, the Director of Public Policy for Lending Club. Louis is a founder of the Responsible Business Lending Coalition. That's how I met him. And is a co-author of the Small Business Borrowers Bill of Rights, an industry nonprofit consensus on responsible business lending standards signed by over 100 organizations, including the New York State CDFI Coalition. He has spoken on fintech innovation and financial inclusion at MIT, Harvard, the Financial Health Network, the Cato Institute, the SBA, as well as hearings and panels of the US Congress and state legislatures. Louis holds a bachelor's degree from Wesleyan University and attended the MBA program at UC Berkeley. So please join me in welcoming Louis. And Louis, take it away.
Thanks, Colleen. That was a really kind introduction, and I'm so pleased to be here and see some old friends and some new faces. Particularly excited to talk to this group because CDFIs are always close to my heart and my vision for what I want for our future. The first half of my career was at the CDFI self-help based out of North Carolina, and based on that experience of trying to figure out what models would really work in lending to low income and overlooked and underserved and communities of color in small business lending, that led me to go to this fintech company called Lending Club and propose that they start a program focused on small businesses using technology to work with some of the same hurdles that all of us do. And I know some increasingly CDFIs are also figuring out how to solve that problem with some technology here and there. So I'm going to talk today a little bit about the New York Small Business Truth in Lending Act that so many people on this Zoom worked at, and give some background about what happened, why, how this is becoming law now, what all of us who are active in small business lending in New York State will be doing soon to comply with this law, why it's helpful, and then what's next, and the influence that this law is having around the whole country, and then answer any questions that are helpful. So to that end, I will share a couple slides to start. So the first thing I just wanted to note, that this law that was passed is the first. It's the strongest small business truth in lending law in the nation, and I think it's a really remarkable accomplishment that the CDFI industry has brought to our customers and to the whole country. And it was the work of a really big coalition that brought together CDFIs with fintechs and civil rights groups and racial justice groups and small business groups. And specifically, many of the folks that are on this call were the drivers of this law. Over on the right, I see Linda Mcfarland. Kim Jacobson did so much, and was such a effective and passionate advocate of getting this law passed. Hubert Pental was so involved. Yankee was involved. Colleen has done so much, and some of the genesis actually I feel a little bit of a full circle on this. Some of the genesis of this law really getting traction and going was conversations that we had. I came to I think at Yankee's invitation, the annual conference of the CDFI coalition. God, that must have been maybe it was 2019. And spoke to many of you, met many of you in person then. Another person that I just want to make sure that we shout out, who's here, is Chris Bresnan from Assemblyman Zebrowski's office, who is a major hero of this breakthrough small business financial protection. Chris had the difficult position of sitting in the middle of hearing proponents and opponents of this law, because this was a fight and there were opponents, and adjudicating what the bill text was. I mean, Chris was responsible and with his companion in the Senate, which was Senator Thomas, and I just can't say enough about what a remarkably excellent public servant Chris was in taking all the details of this issue and all the complexity and knowing it really better than maybe anyone else in the around. So I just want people to know what a hero he and the Assemblyman's office were on this. And also just want to say how inspiring it was for me for the CDFI coalition to come together to pass this law to protect small businesses. In my start at Self-Help, the thinking about the role that CDFIs can play in policy, which I'm sure is something that's shared by so many here, it was really informed by being at this CDFI through the subprime mortgage crisis in 2007 and 8 and 9 and the aftermath of that and the years following. And what we experienced at Self-Help in the mortgage side was that we had been doing, good community development work, reaching first-time home buyers, turning around neighborhoods with high vacancies that were suffering and building wealth for local communities and for all of the good that we were doing. It was just wiped out in multiples more of all of that family wealth was wiped out by bad practices that were happening in industry. And that left me with the conclusion that CDFIs can help so many folks with direct service, and also a part of the change that can be so important is being an example for the rest of the market to look to be able to have that moral authority and say, this is what responsible practice looks like. This is what y'all should be doing. And then driving that where there are problems through policy work, and there are today. And so since some of these folks are on right now, if anyone wanted to take a moment, I'd love to just open it up for any particular borrower story or experience from any CDFI with a small business that was affected by predatory lending that motivated them to come to this, or that they think might be helped by this law.
I don't know that everybody's going to jump at once, but we did have a number of CDFIs from around the state who shared their stories that we amplified, that we were able to get into news outlets and other venues across the state while we were advocating for this bill to be passed. So we had, people who signed up for loans and unknowingly were paying, 3-digit interest, multiple hundreds of % interest, having daily deductions from their, bank accounts that they weren't aware was going to happen. And, unfortunately, some businesses folded. Some were able to be bailed out, and have that debt refinanced by good CDFIs. But yeah, that was a lot of loss that a lot of companies across New York State experienced because of these predatory lenders. And it's a business model. It's not like, oh, we could do it differently. No, that's actually their business model. They really want to, gouge as much of these fees as they can.
Thanks, Kim. Pardon me, thanks, Colleen. Worked so much with Kim on this. Well, another story that we can hear, someone who summed it up well, there's been a lot of attention by the federal regulators, in some cases the state regulators, to predatory small business lending. And this quote was something that I happened to hear Philadelphia Federal Reserve President Harker speak about several years ago, where he said, I hear these stories constantly about a small business in particular getting into a situation where they don't know what they signed up for, and they walk into their community banks or their CDFIs and say, I've got to get out of this deal, it's killing me. And there are good and bad actors out there. And we focused on the disclosure as one piece because it addresses that part of folks not knowing what they signed up for, and we think can enable competition to come to the market by there being actual price disclosures, so people can go into that and companies can feel some pressure to lower their prices, and folks might have an idea whether they're going into something that is akin to a small business payday loan. I'm sure folks are used to seeing contracts like this. This is an excerpt from a small business financing contract from a merchant cash advance company in this case. And this is why this law that was passed in New York is so important. This is basically the disclosure that a lot of small businesses see today, and a lot of our customers are seeing. And the question is this a good deal or not? What is the price? How does the price of this 15% purchase percentage compare to a 20% APR loan, which is even on the expensive side for a loan? One thing that we find, and I imagine you might find it too, is that, and Federal Reserve research finds this, is that small business owners are often inclined to view really any percentage number that's disclosed as the interest rate. And what they might miss is, in this case, the interest, I guess I gotta scroll. In this case, when you do the math, the APR in this deal would be 127%. And that is just not, that's not clear. And that is one piece that ends well, the effect is obvious. And it's especially like all issues of predatory lending, it affects vulnerable communities more. And these are the communities that everyone on this call is focused on serving particularly. There's been some interesting research also at the Federal Reserve, which was finding basically that Black and Hispanic owned businesses in particular are twice as affected by what the Federal Reserve, in their own words, calls higher cost and less transparent credit products. And so, yeah, we'll get to that. And so to address that issue, the CDFI, this coalition came together, and this push for a single truth in lending standard that would include APR and would enable small businesses to compare the cost of their capital was very hard fought. One thing Colleen asked me to talk about was why it was hard fought, why this was not controversial, or why this was controversial, why it was not non-controversial. And the reason is, you know, if you're a company that is offering 127% APR and not telling people, it would really hurt your financing company if your customers knew that they were about to pay 127% APR, and that company might end up losing a lot of business potentially to CDFIs or lower cost lenders that can offer those same folks a better deal and a more fair deal. The price of these products is only one of the problems. As folks have referenced, you know, just the high cost is part of a product structure, which in many other ways brings in features from payday lending or subprime mortgage lending that create debt trap dynamics of maybe shorter terms that get flipped over and over again, extracting more and more wealth along the way. And so there was a lot of opposition, mostly from the merchant cash advance industry. Even a large fintech company got involved in trying to oppose this law, but most fintech companies and nearly everyone else was supportive. I think some have said that basically, if you want to understand the opposition and the proponents were all of these groups that we described, and the opposition was companies that charge high APRs and don't disclose them, and think that if they did disclose them, their customers wouldn't want their products as much. And because it was existential for those groups, they put a lot of money into donations and lobbyists and working really, really hard to have an influence. And I think it's really speaks to the power of I just see Kim smiling, her, you know, the rhetoric and experience of folks like him, and the story and the facts, and public servants like Chris that can tell the difference, and that this law passed, and it didn't just pass in Chris's house. The New York State Small Business Truth and Lending Act passed. I believe it was 32-9 in the Assembly, and so that was a great victory. So I will show what's next. What is this going to do?
Actually, that's what I was going to ask, Louis. You know, for those of us who haven't been deeply engaged in this, yeah, it passed. It passed the day before Christmas Eve 2 years ago. What's going on? You know?
Yeah.
So, yeah. Let's talk about what's next.
Okay. So what's next is, since it passed, the state regulator, DFS, who we all know well, is writing rules, and they've said that they expect those rules to be completed probably next month. And what those rules will do is require all lenders to provide a disclosure. And I'll show you a sample disclosure because all of us who are serving small businesses will soon be providing a disclosure like this. And I'm having trouble with the share screen feature all of a sudden. There's nothing shared right now, right? This is strange. Okay, well,
let's suffice it to say that actually one of our member CDFIs, now a company capital, provided their disclosure form, that we basically presented to DFS as a model. So the rules that are being promulgated are deeply and intrinsically informed by CDFIs. So I don't think that any of these disclosure rules will come as a surprise to any of us.
They won't. And if anyone's in a position of, wanting a little guidance or tire kick on what the disclosure might look like, then Colleen and others can be a resource. Chris, is there anything that you'd like to say before you have to jump? I think I saw your note there.
I just wanted to thank everybody for the invite and appreciate Louis's talk. Everyone was a great partner in getting this done. The only thing I'd say as a brief update, we've been in consultation with DFS. We've had a call with them. They extended another comment period to work out some additional issues that have come up, and I will say I'm pretty confident in our conversations with them that they have come up with some, interesting and smart things. They have to keep within the context of our statute, which is very prescriptive, which is in contrast to what in California, which gave them maybe too much leeway out there. So, I think they've just want to make sure that when this comes out, that we're not thinking of every time we go over this, there's a new type of financing out there with interesting terms and parameters that we got to make sure that a disclosure fits in there. But as Louis said, I had a call a couple weeks ago with the Senate and DFS and their staff. They have a whole team on this, and we came out of that call very confident that the next iteration will be the last one, and we can begin implementing this and providing guidance to companies and on how to implement it properly. So I think as they do come out with it, it'll be a period where collaboration with them and getting it right. But we need to get it. As Louis said, there's countless businesses that get involved in products that they can't ever get out of because of sort of the predatory nature of it. And we have some unique things in this law that will hopefully make it unattractive products. And so they turn to more responsible lenders, or so unappealing that they stop the practice altogether. So we're really looking forward for this to come into fruition in New York. And I really appreciate the CDFI Coalition's partnership in this endeavor, as Louis said, and Louis was a great partner in this. We got to talk quite a bit over that time period, and so he's a great resource on this. But it was a challenge. It honestly was, and it was during COVID, so we were all through Zoom figuring this very complex issue out. But we always appreciate the work that you do for small businesses and individuals across the state, and so hopefully this will be a good way to showcase your work. So sorry for that long explanation. I do have to jump off at a 12:30 call, but I really appreciate the invite and opportunity to chat.
Thanks, Chris, and please convey our gratitude to Assemblyman Zabrowski.
Great, I will. Good to see everybody. Have a great day. Bye.
Any questions from folks before I describe a little more of what's next and the effect this bill is having around the country?
I was just going to say we've got about 8 minutes left on this segment. So yeah, if we could transition to the federal effort, that'd be great.
Great. So this bill has become the model for federal legislation. New York Congresswoman Nydia Velázquez in the Bronx took the language of the New York State Small Business Truth and Lending Act and turned it into a federal bill, which has gotten great support from all of the committee leaders and committee heads. So in the House, Maxine Waters has co-sponsored it, as has the who runs the House Financial Services Committee, as you know, and the subcommittee heads in there of the relevant committees, Congressman Perlmutter, Congressman Meeks, and so on. And then in the Senate, the bill is led by Senator Menendez from New Jersey, but is also co-sponsored by Senator Brown, who runs the Banking Committee, Senator Cardin, who runs the Small Business Committee, and so on. So for things that we can do to maximize and increase our impact, one of them is first, as the regulations come out for the New York law, lead by example and show folks, all laws, all compliance is in some ways a hassle, but this is one where this is an opportunity for CDFIs to sort of quiet the foot draggers in industry, which will want to say, oh, we can't disclose these things. It's so hard. It's so hard to comply. This is a huge burden. For CDFIs to say, you know what, like we just plug the number into Excel. We tell our customers it's not a big deal. And to keep an eye out at the state level, there may be efforts by the merchant cash advance industry and high-cost lenders to undermine this law as it comes out and say, however it is, they'll say, this is a disaster. We need to relook at this. We need to repeal this. Let's put in a bill for study and delay, which they proposed. That's at the state level. At the federal level, there's the federal bill, and that could use more and more support. It's going to come to markup soon. It's been endorsed by most of the New York delegation. I think we just heard that Congressman Maloney agreed to endorse too. Congressman Richie Torres from the Bronx hasn't signed on. I don't know if he's been contacted yet. And so if any folks here have a relationship with his office,
so along those lines of the federal advocacy, last year when the bill was introduced, the CDFI coalition did endorse that legislation. But what I have is, prior to this, the bill was supposed to go into markup, I think, this week, but because of the situation in Ukraine, it's been pushed back a little bit. So we have some time still. So what I'm going to do is share a sign-on letter, or actually an endorsement letter, that individual institutions can send in to Congresswoman Velasquez's staffer. And yeah, by all means, if you're in Richie Torres's district, yeah, put a phone call into him. So I will follow up by email by sending that information around after this call. Louis, I did see one question in the chat. Have you been able to engage the support of the CDFI trade associations? I'm guessing that's on the federal or state or both. Both, okay.
Yeah, so Opportunity Finance Network has also endorsed it. They're a member of the Responsible Business Lending Coalition as well. So they're engaged too. And if there are other CDFI groups that you think would be helpful to engage, just let Colleen or I know and speak up if you'd like. And then another piece is this bill has become kind of a model for the nation. And so really a version of this exact bill, looking straight to this text that was crafted with all this input from Kim and Linda and Yankee and so on with Chris, has been introduced in New Jersey, one in Connecticut, one in Maryland, several other states. Meanwhile, the merchant cash advance industry has sort of like fake versions of truth in lending bills that they're trying to get passed to create a kind of fake appearance of there being truth in lending standards. If anyone on the call is also active in Connecticut or New Jersey, it would be really valuable to flag that for Colleen and just check your comfort of putting your logo on a letter saying, we like this happened in New York. We want this to happen. Connecticut and New Jersey should pass these laws, which haven't passed yet, but are facing the same pretty tough fighting opposition. So those are the next steps and ways to help. And I'm just so grateful to be able to talk to folks here and be a part of it. Kim, I wonder if there's anything that you'd want to share too, just having worked so much on this. Not to put you on the spot, sorry.
I'm sorry.
Unaccustomed as you are to public speaking.
I just wondered if there's anything that you'd want to say in conclusion about this law and what it meant to you or your customers or anything else, any advice?
Sure. Yeah. You know, one of the things, certainly we are all keenly aware of the interest rates, but one of the other things that we really saw with so many people that had been ensnared, if you will, is that it's hard for us to even get them out of the loan and refinance it at a more reasonable rate because the prepayment penalties were so onerous. And those penalties were often disguised in language that said things like, you know, they would say there's no prepayment penalty, and then it would go on to say there's a prepayment discount where you're only going to have to pay 75% of the remaining interest instead of 100% of the remaining interest. And of course, the point for any of us in a loan is if you pay it off is you don't have to pay the interest on the payments that you're not making in the future. But under these contracts, all of the interest was due regardless of when you repaid the loan. And so, you know, the one I'm thinking of is we had a guy that had like a $40,000 loan, and we were going to have to refinance $51,000 to get him out of the loan. So yeah, our loan was at a much lower interest rate, but you know, the cost, he really had already incurred all the cost of the abusive loan. So this makes them actually call a prepayment penalty, and it makes them spell out exactly what it is, so that you know, that too should be a red flag to potential borrowers.
And Kim specifically won that language in this law. I remember, Kim, you talking with Chris President at a roundtable where there were folks that used the practice that you described, and they made the case about why it was okay for them to do it, and you said your piece, and Chris heard you both, and you know, because of how you put it, he sided with you, and now there's a disclosure that will require transparency in that practice, and what used to be described as a prepayment benefit will now more clearly be described as a prepayment charge.
Right.
So it's 12:40. That's the amount of time that we had allotted for Louis's presentation. If anyone has questions around this effort, now would be the time to ask before we transition, and thank Louis for his input and insight. Anyone have thoughts or questions? I will be sending around the information on Congresswoman Velasquez's bill. But if anybody has anything going once, going twice, then please join me in thanking Louis for this very insightful presentation and for on the Responsible Business Lending Coalition.
Your partnership.
Thanks, Louis. Have a good one. All right, well, so all right, so now it's just us chickens. So now is your part. Now it's your time. Does anyone have questions? I mean, we just had a series of presentations on SSBCI and 4 of those programs from ESD the last couple of weeks. I have been posting the videos on our YouTube page if you missed the presentations. So if anybody has questions on that or needs a recap, or if anybody just has questions or observations about the world of CDFIs as it stands right now in our second year of pandemic land, don't make me talk for the next 20 minutes. Somebody come on. All right, maybe we don't have much to talk about. At this point, I do want to just remind people that we do have these events coming up in April and May, and also in June. Watch your email, watch your inbox. Anyone? Raise a hand, send up a flare. All right, I think everybody's busy. So let's go and do our good things in the community. Really appreciate your support. If you have not updating your membership, you can check on our website and make sure that your name is listed in bold. That will indicate that you've paid your dues for this year. It's your dues that help us continue to offer service to the field like this. So thanks very much and have a great weekend. Happy spring. So long.